You guys already know how much of a difference it makes to have a higher type of bow and higher or better quality strings on just the performance in general and how rich your sound is. And this time I am going to invest in another shoulder rest, a new shoulder rest that is about 3 times as costly as my previous one, which was the Augustin Flex L shoulder rest. And this one that I have right now is the Pedi carbon shoulder rest that approximately costs 100,000 won. But before I get into this, I would want to share to you the horrors that I have encountered the past couple of weeks with my thought to be trusty shoulder rest, Augustin's Flex L shoulder rest. I have been using this shoulder rest for a couple of years. I'm safely gonna say 3 to 4 years, but most recently, while playing, I don't know if it's because of the wear of the rubber band, but it would simply give in to slight pressures from my body. And as you see, its body is made of plastic and it has a pretty thick and squishy pad for your shoulders, and you can press it in, and these screws are average and it's a bit long for you to adjust. And it is a good one, and I think beginners can also use this quite well. And it is cheap. It is about 35,000 Korean won and $30 US. So it is pretty cheap regarding shoulder rests. But what the problem is that if I demonstrate to you, each time I would play a particularly strong piece or a forte, I don't want to damage my violin further, so hopefully this doesn't do anything, but with slight pressure, the rubber on this side, as you can clearly see, lifts off of the violin, and this causes the rest to follow suit and essentially break loose. And it is okay if it just slightly came up, but no, it would bend my violin and make a really loud sound, and it also damages my violin. As you can see, already made a couple dents on the back of my violin because of that. If you are suffering from dents just like I am, you can go to your nearby violin workshop or just a violin shop in general where I'm pretty sure they are making violins themselves, and say, hey, can you do a quick retouch on the dents of my violin? So that was the main problem, and I don't know if it is because of the rubber specifically wearing, but it was not pleasant at all. And while playing, instead of even going just slightly off like this, sometimes it would slide off like this and then eventually like come off. The shoulder rest rests on my shoulder really nicely, and it does pad your shoulders a lot. So if you're a beginner, it's a definite recommend. But as you go more intermediately, and especially if your playing style is like mine, I like to put a bit force and put my whole body into the music that I'm playing. So that was the problem that I was facing particularly. And I read other reviews and other customer reviews for this specific shoulder rest, and I can see that a lot of the other users also had just problems, even if it was a new shoulder rest, that it was keep on slipping off. So I knew I had to switch this. Other members of my orchestra, because I asked them for advice, said that no, you can just buy replacements for the top screw because it seems like your rubber has worn off. But this is a pretty cheap shoulder rest compared to just other ones, and I felt like making an investment was the right choice. It's been a while since I bought this bow, which was also pricier than my normal practice bows, and I changed all the strings into a high quality string, and it does make a difference, guys. The sound quality and the deep richness that your violin can produce does change with the material, and that does not mean that you should immediately change all of your material other than the violin itself into a higher quality just because you want to. If you can afford it, then I would definitely recommend it, but if you can't, there are other ways such as just practicing your skills and technique to just improve your violin playing skills in general. That is a perfect segue to the next shoulder rest that I'm gonna try, and it is called a Pedi carbon violin shoulder rest. So it's from the brand Pedi, and Pedi, P-E-D-I, and the specific type is Elegante, and it says it's carbon. Carbon is the exact thing that you think that comes in cars, and they use it on the shoulder rest itself, and instead of the plastic it would be carbon, and I'll show you when I unbox this. So this is how it came in, just a classic shoulder rest box, and if we open it we can see that they have included, okay, so this is how the box looks like, and silica gel rubber. Putting the shoulder rest aside, they did include a extra padding for us, and I think this is really generous and this is awesome that this company is providing you with another shoulder rest just in case. This is 100,000 Korean won, and this makes it 3 times as expensive as the old one that I bought, so it was a huge investment, and it might not sound like a lot, but it is sort of a lot. And by giving an extra shoulder rest, it's just as, hey, you made a big investment to buy for our shoulder rest, and we are thanking you with this. So that is a really nice touch. Now, looking at the shoulder rest itself, there are 2 screws like before, and if we compare the length to the other one, it's about the same. But I might say that on the longer ends, this one is a bit more longer, so if you want to have a large gap between your shoulder and violin itself, maybe you can invest in another company's shoulder rest. Anyways, looking right at it, you can just notice that the padding is really different, and this one you can feel the cushion, but this one is not cushioned at all. And if I describe the texture, it's about when you go to the trampoline and on the side mats, or if you go to a kid's daycare and they have soundproof mats, I think it's the same material, and it is quite hard. So I noticed that other users who bought this said that it does take a bit of an adjustment period for you to get used to the pad or the lack of padding in general. But once you get used to it, it's really comfortable and it really suits your style. Right off the bat, I can notice that this is way curvier than this one. If you can see, even disregarding the padding, it's pretty much in a curvature style, but it's not as drastic as this. And you can see that it has a high up and high down, and the curve is similar to this one because your shoulder has to rest here, but it is way arched up, and I think it's to compensate for the thin padding. Let me show you the carbon. If you can see here, then you can see the little black weaving patterns here, and that is the carbon. And as I said before, the carbon is the same material that they use in, for example, cars. So what this makes is that this is a bit heavier, and it's because this is plastic, but this part is made of carbon, and carbon is famous for being light but also sturdy, so this won't have the problem of snapping or breaking in itself. I quite honestly don't think that you will ever have a time where you put so much force that the shoulder rest itself is gonna snap in half, but it just having that hard bone style is in itself is a little reassurance. It has the same 3 holes as the other shoulder rest, and the length is about the same. So I'm gonna quickly assemble this and show you what it looks like on my violin. If you're wondering, how far do I need to put the screw in? Essentially, this is personal preference, and how far, as I said before, you want the gap between the violin and your shoulder. But generally, you would want to screw it in a little bit, like halfway through, and that would usually be the correct height. And yeah, I'm gonna leave this button on the second hole as it already is because it matches the holes that I currently have on the Augustin stand. So let's bring in my violin, and if we put this in. Okay, first of all, I can immediately show you that even if I push in the same force, you can hear the thing kind of struggle against it, but it wouldn't come off, which is really reassuring because I like, again, to put my body weight in and it won't pop off. And popping off is not a good thing in violin stands. And if I want to take it off, I would just simply push it out, and you can already see that it latches onto my violin, which is an excellent thing to have because you want your violin to just be perfectly fit in with the shoulder rest, and you want that grip in, which is really reassuring and really nice to hear. And if you are wanting to purchase this Pedi shoulder rest, there are different colors for the carbon inside. There's purple, red, yellow, and other colors, but I chose black because personally, I just like a sleek finish, and you can see on the inside it looks more professional. And with my violin color specifically, purple and red, although it's eccentric and it's unique, it can give you a personal touch. I don't think it will look good with the tone of my violin back and just my violin in general. You can see that the violin is pretty much closer on the ground than the shoulder rest if I use Augustin. If I use the Augustin's violin, you can see that they have more of a space from the shoulder, which would be the table, to the violin itself. And if you can see, it's tilted like this because of the shoulder pads. It's way higher up on the ground. So I think I would need an adjustment period to this, but I am excited to actually test this out. It is, again, a huge investment because 100,000 won compared to 35,000 is a big difference, and I have only seen positive reviews and comments underneath the purchase, which might have a slight bias, but also I've seen negative comments on this shoulder rest. So I'm going to trust what other critics say. So again, I will now go on to me trying it out. Let's go. Right away, if I put it on, I can feel a difference because the shoulder rest, the pads are not as great, and I can feel myself leaning a bit more down into the violin itself. Based on my playing, I think I am going to say that I love this. Currently, I don't think it is, compared to the old one, well, it is a drastic improvement because the shoulder rest didn't pop off. And I know that's the bare minimum, but it didn't felt like it was the minimum the past couple of weeks where I struggled to keep the shoulder rest on. And I think I would need a little bit adjusting on my part too, because I would lean in more, and that puts a little bit too much pressure on my shoulders, so it might ache. So except for that, I think it is good. I am going to tentatively give this a light 7 to strong 8 currently, and hopefully in a couple of years the rubber will still stay on, and I am going to trust that it is higher quality based on the cost, and hopefully this helped you decide on what shoulder rest you wanted to get to. So bye everyone, and make sure to practice.